Welcome back to another episode of Housing Solutions of New York podcast, One Step Away, a safe space to transform lives one step at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Zalex Rivera, also known as Dr. X. Hope everybody's having a good time, having a good day. We're going to have a good conversation because we're traveling all the way to Queens today. Excited to interview or talk to Council Member Ty Hankerson. Hey, Ty.
Hi, Dr. X. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited. Since we met, me and you just been going. You done been to my sites a couple of times. You're
Yeah.
already in the district. So tell me a little bit about, before we dig into like how did you become council member Ty, right? Let's figure out who Ty was before council member. So talk to me about your upbringing, growing up in Southeast Queens, your neighborhood, and all your early influences.
Yeah. So Ty is a kid from Southside. I grew up between South Ozone Park and South Jamaica. When my parents had me, they were young, and so their first apartment was actually the upstairs of someone's home in South Richmond Hill, right off of Liberty and 131st Street. As I, got a little older, went to elementary school, they sent me to go stay with my great grandmother in South Ozone Park, to which my family had a house there since I want to say the 60s or the 50s. They were part of the Great Migration from South Carolina, and my great grandfather and great grandmother came up here, third grade education, bought a home, raised a family, started a business, and my great grandfather could not read or write.
Wow.
And so I think it speaks to the tenacity of that generation to be able to do such. But stayed with them for a little bit, and then we moved over to the South Jamaica area to where my grandmother lives, and we call that the Bricks. All right, over on Rockaway and Sufton. Shout out the Bricks. Southside, we outside. And so, a lot of my upbringing, was between, again, all of these neighborhoods. And then my mother and my father, they purchased a home right off of Linden initially, Sayers Avenue. And then our last home was 119th and Merrick, right outside of Rochdale Village. So I literally have lived in all four neighborhoods of District 28, South Jamaica, South Ozone Park, South Richmond Hill, and the Rochdale Village, the greater Rochdale Village area.
Wow. So
Yeah.
it sounds like this was kind of predestined if you're going to live in all the neighborhoods within your district.
I mean, it feels that way. Growing up, it didn't seem that way. I'm like, there's a lot going on out
Like
here,
a lot
but
of house hopping a little bit.
but
A
you
lot of
know
house
what?
hopping.
It didn't quite feel that way. It didn't quite feel that way because when you're with family, family has a way of um allowing you not to see
The struggle.
the struggle,
Yeah.
right? So it didn't feel like
You
that.
were house hopping. But now you
Yeah.
look back and you're like, why was I in 4 or 5 houses?
Yeah, we moved quite a bit.
But I think that's something really, awesome to be reminded of. Like when we look at like our trajectory in our life, how the things back when we were growing up
Yeah.
play such a major part.
Yeah.
Like everything makes sense now.
Right.
In the moment, you was just a kid. You was having a good time.
Having a good
Grandma was
time.
good. Mom was good. Everybody good.
Yep.
Now you look back and you're like, I think I was supposed to go through all of that.
Yeah.
I think I was supposed to go through all of that. So you talked a lot about home ownership, but you also talked about like a little bit what community looked like to you.
Yeah.
So how was it for you bouncing into 4 or 5 different neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Or
So
communities?
it was interesting because my great grandmother in South Ozone Park, they owned their home, right? And so being able to see that, having the backyard, having the front yard, the kids on the block, we always played together. And so that was different. Every time we went over there, I'm like, okay, this feels a little different. The birds is chirping, the sun is out.
And they
That's what it
chirp
felt
loud,
like. Yeah,
don't
and
they?
they do.
They chirp.
When
It'd be
you
like the bird right out your window.
in the house, and so for me, that was one experience. But then also, having lived with my grandmother in the building, in her apartment, which is a HUD building, it also showed me another side because that community was a little different. And what I mean by that is everybody was it was close knit because we were literally all in the same square. That building is shaped like a square. And so you go outside into the square, you see your friends. And I still remember my friends to this day. Tyrell, which is another
Ty.
kid named Tyrell. Tyrell, William, Darius, and John John.
Shout out to them. He just named out
Yeah,
his whole crew.
those is
So
my
if you
guys.
listening, and we're gonna make sure they get a share to this. Shout out to the crew, especially John John. You know, we always got
John
friends that got the
John.
double name.
Yeah, John John was John John. Amen.
So how do you think your early experiences shaped your understanding of just, I want to say life, but also just stability, housing, opportunity? How did you think it all came together now?
Yeah, it showed me how necessary housing was. There was a point where when my mother had moved us from, her small apartment in Richmond Hill to my grandmother's house in the building, uh, at that point I kind of felt what it was like to not have your own space. And that was different for me, right?
Yeah.
We were all cooped up in one house. And so, you got to share the bathroom. You got to share this. You got to share that. And again, as a kid, it was just like, okay, this is just what it
That's what
is.
it is.
But looking
Yeah.
back, it showed me the importance of having your own space and what it feels like, that independence that people feel when they can come home and say,
Yeah.
this is my space,
Yeah.
right? Shout out to MySpace. But this is my but yeah, I think that is key. It's not just key to independence, it's key to building wealth. It's key to having a space if you wanted to start a family. It's key to also establishing your identity as a person.
Yeah.
Because your space becomes your own.
Yeah, that's a big one. For us, we have the unhoused or vulnerable population
Mhm.
throughout all of New York City. One of the things we always want to pride and celebrate with our clients is when they get their keys, they get to shake their own
Yeah.
keys, because a lot of things are, I don't want to say stripped away from them, but it's part of the policies and procedures of living in temporary housing. And keys are one of them.
Yeah.
So, like in shelter, you don't get the key. Right? Somebody has to escort you upstairs and open your door.
That's right.
And then you get to go inside. So whenever you're trying to protect something that's inside, you got to be inside with the stuff that you're protecting.
Yeah.
Because every time you walk out of your unit, the door has to lock.
Yep.
And if you need to go back in there, you got to go get staff to unlock your door.
Yeah.
So when a person gets independence at that point or gets their voucher and they're moving out, shaking those keys are the biggest monumental thing for people after they have experienced any levels of being displaced or being unhoused.
And I can say, sorry to cut you off.
No, absolutely.
I know that firsthand. There was a point in time where my mother and we lived in a shelter.
Wow.
Albeit no more than a few weeks, but we were there for
Those weeks count.
Yeah.
Because you remember them.
I remember them
Very
vividly,
vividly.
and that time again, not having your own key, having that curfew,
Yeah.
having to check in, and at that time we didn't have our own bathroom. It was a shared shower.
Shared space. Yeah.
That everyone had to go to, and so
Which is different than the shared shower you had with your cousins and them.
very true.
It's very different. Okay.
Very different, right? And so I remember that time, but it also has taught me, I believe, especially as I move into this role as a legislator, that you have to keep all people in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when it comes to legislation or legislators, I think sometimes we forget that we're not just serving the interest of this one group. We have to take into account all people.
Yeah.
Legislation has to be reasonable and responsible. Those are the two R's that I believe in. Reasonable in the sense that, okay, you may have to give up this or this in order to make this happen, but responsible to ensure that it's not taking away necessarily the livelihood of another people group.
Or the dignity. I think a
Or
lot
the
of times
dignity,
people
absolutely.
forget the simplest thing. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they're unhoused. They should just deal with it. And it's like, no, as a grown man, you go into shelter, or even as a grown woman, but I want to highlight men really quickly. As a grown man, you go into shelter and you're trying, right? You're going to keep trying to get up and go to work. But here I am, the little Miss Case manager, and you got to tell me what time you coming in, right? You might have kids my age, or whatever. And you got to tell me what time you coming in. You got to tell me your girlfriend's name and where you going to be when you want to spend time with your girlfriend. It is emasculating. It is something that can bring a person down. And so a lot of times we have to look at stuff like that. So I know at Housing Solutions, we try to make sure that while we're offering the services, that we're holding up as best as we can, because policies are policies, as best as we can, try to hold up their dignity.
Yeah.
Right? We can have those private conversations. You ain't got to tell me in public your girlfriend's name and everything, but I do need to know where you're going, right? Just so I can make sure my stakeholders are doing well.
Yeah.
Before we roll into fully the district and how, we've had some pre-conversations, tell me how you even entered public service. Like,
Sure.
tell me about your school journey, how you get
Yeah.
here. Did you always know that you was going to be in politics?
That's a good question. But before I answer that question, I just want to go back and give a shout out, particularly to the men in temporary housing.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult. It is extremely difficult for them. Because you're dealing with so much. You're dealing with, the pressures or the regulations that come from,
Yep.
the organization, but also the community to which you're living in. And often there is a stigma associated to
stigma.
men who are in temporary housing, and they are called everything but a child of God.
Yeah.
And that is a lot to deal with, especially to the point that you made. They may have families or kids of their own. And then to be labeled a whole bunch of other stuff, it is a lot. And so I just want to shout them out, because I don't think that they are shouted out as much as they should be, or highlighted, excuse me, as much as they should be. Or
absolutely.
seen,
We need an applause there when we need an applause for the men that are in shelter. We want to highlight and shout them out, because again, it really isn't easy. And a lot of times we just act like it's normal, and media makes it worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because every homeless person on TV is a man. And you're like, actually, they don't make up as much as the percentage that we think, right? But I guess it just looks good on Law and Order. I'm not sure. All right, so tell me, Ty, how'd you end up in public service? How'd you get here?
So it's a funny story. I had no interest in politics or government until the 5th grade. Now, I know that's odd, because
Let's
everybody's
pause
like,
right there. This man just said he was saying that like he was about to tell us I had no interest in politics until after. Like I thought he was gonna go so much further, right? No, that man said 5th grade, sir. None of us knew what we were. 5th grade? I think in 5th grade I was gonna be a jeweler. I didn't even know that was a job or not. Well, and here you are talking about something. Yeah, I knew I was gonna be a politician in 5th grade. I'm sorry.
It gave me time to prepare.
Clearly. Oh my God. Y'all should, if this was recorded, y'all should have seen my face. I was like, oh, this has been a long. He said 5th grade. I'm just, all right, go ahead. 5th grade.
We should do, I'm saying we like I'm part of the crew. But
we should
we
do
should
a
video
no,
version
we getting
of this.
there. Don't worry, we getting there. We bringing you back. Don't worry about that.
I mean, I look crazy right now, but for the next time, I'll be all right. But so going back to that, so 5th grade, I don't know what exactly it was that sparked the interest. I think it was social studies. We're in social studies. I'm sure they were probably teaching about the U.S. government. For most folks, it is extremely boring, and I can understand why.
I don't remember any of my social studies classes.
I even remember the teacher's name. That's the funny part.
The teacher.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a little odd, but it just sparked an interest. And so I remember coming in, the next day, and I told all my friends, I said, look, this is what we're going to do. All right. You're going to be the governor. You're going to be the mayor. These are the only roles I knew about. I told 2 others, I said, y'all going to be Secret Service. That's a serious job. Okay. You can't mess up.
You did this with John and that?
No, this wasn't John. This is my classmates.
Oh,
yeah, these are my classmates.
And they participated in this. Wow, he always been a leader.
PS1, shout out PS 155 Q in South Ozone Park, the Ronald H. Brown Community School, who was a political leader. I remember telling him this, and I said, well, I'll just be the president. I mean, nobody else gonna raise their hand, so I guess I'll do it. And that started it. And so from that point, my friends, they were like, all right. So they started calling me Mr. President. And that is what started. Then when I got to middle school, MS 72 in Rochdale Village, Catherine and Count Basie Middle School 72, we actually had student government. And I remember running for class president, and this is September. We're all brand new in the school. We're all freshmen. And I said, I'm going to run for class president. Ran for class president. And the day of the election, I was late to school. For anybody that's listening that may know me, I was often late to school. And so
Again, he said that just now, y'all, like as if he was going to say it in a way that he usually is not late to school. And everybody would have been surprised at this point that you were now late to school. But now you're saying you were running for student class president and you were just always late.
I was late to the election. So I was concerned. I'm like, oh, I might not win. I might not win. So I remember I got in there and I opened the door. Class was already going on. It had to be like 8:30, 8:45, maybe 9 o'clock. Who knows? Something like that. And they opened the door and they said, congratulations, Mr. President. I said, I won. Shocking.
Oh my God.
And it just from there it just kept going. Every year I ran for something. I was 1 year I didn't run for president. I ran for vice president.
You was tired at that time?
No. I'm not going to say the person's name. So there was somebody else that was running that was a little more popular. And, at that time it was a popularity contest. And so I believe in knowing the data. Don't run for something if you cannot win that race. You have to be smart.
Use the data.
Use the data. The data will show you, hey, you will do well here. You won't do well here. And shameless plug, a lot of successful campaigns that we've seen of recent used data to run. They didn't go off the old way, well, what they saying over there? No, they used the data.
Yeah.
And so in 8th grade, I used the data.
8th grade.
8th grade.
You're doing good. This is a good
Thank
school
you.
that you was in, clearly.
Thank you. I used the data, and I said, okay, I'm not going to win president, but I can win vice president. And I did that.
Okay.
And we won. We won. I always say we won because it's never a one-person show.
That's true.
It is a we, it's a collaborative effort. We won. And then we did the same thing in high school. We were the first student government body in my high school. My high school was new. High School for Law Enforcement and Public Safety in South Jamaica. So every school I went to has been in the district. As we move around.
And you just keep running for office.
We just keep running.
So from 5th grade when it
from
sparked.
5th grade.
You just been running for whatever the government version is in the school, the
That's
class, or whatever. You said, I'm a run.
I said, we're going to do this.
Okay.
And we did it. And so it's funny today, now serving as a council member, which I am honored and humbled to serve as, because this is really a community thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
When we had our inauguration, I remember when we put out the RSVP, and I did not think anybody would RSVP. I really did not think anybody would RSVP. In 48 hours, we had 700 RSVPs. I was like, who these folks?
We
who these
serious.
folks?
We outside.
They
said we outside.
We outside, and this is a South Side thing, and that's what really did it for me, because this win in the council was not for me. This was for our community.
Yeah.
This is for our people, and so that was my journey through school, and that was pretty much
the whole journey.
That was the journey.
But then you was able to work with the living legend. I'm gonna call her a living legend.
Yes.
She has knocked off a lot of the, things that I guess women weren't able to do before, but they were able to do now. And from the future after her, we'll always be able to reference her as a point of I can, right? If she did, then I can too.
Yep.
So you were able to work under former Speaker Adrienne Adams, who not only was the first woman to run in this district.
That's right.
She was also the first woman speaker in New York City.
First black woman.
First black woman speaker in New York City.
Yeah.
So how was that? That sounds like a lot of pressure.
It was. So prior to, I'll say this because I want to talk about Adrienne, the person, for a moment. But before I get there, prior to coming to work for Adrienne Adams, I was a nonprofit. I served I ended at SQPA, Southern Queens Park Association, as a director and special assistant to the executive director. But and I'm going to tie it all together. It was interesting because during my time there, I started working at SQPA from 17 as a camp counselor. Went from camp counselor, then matriculated to admin assistant, then I think assistant coordinator, then deputy director, then director, then special assistant to the ED before I left. While I was there, I got involved in the community a bit more because I was at SQPA while in college. And my college journey is very interesting because I got kicked out. Yeah, I know, right?
No, we needed to record this visually.
I got kicked out. Them folks kicked me out.
Don't say it like that. What you do?
So
What did you do to them people that they kicked you out of school?
So I didn't do a doggone thing.
Here we go.
I did
Here
not.
we go. Typical New Yorker. It wasn't me.
It was them.
It was them.
But
I just was late to class.
No.
Oh.
Well, I don't know, but it wasn't that. That wasn't the reason. That wasn't the reason. My grades were good from what I remember.
Your grades was good.
Oh, yeah.
You was not late and they kicked you out. This sounds like a lawsuit.
Well, I don't know if it's a lawsuit, but it had to do with money though.
Okay. Oh,
and this is
okay.
So I after high school, I applied to college. I got accepted to 3 of the colleges that I applied to, or 3 of my choices. My first choice was GW, George Washington University. I got accepted early decision for GW in DC. I ended up not going because GW, if anyone knows, is the most expensive school in the nation. And I just didn't have the money for it. The second school I got accepted to was Morehouse College in Atlanta. You see, I learned how to say Atlanta. It's not Atlanta, it's Atlanta. I got friends in Atlanta. And so when they called me, the issue there was financial aid as well. And I'm like, I'm going to either have to pay out of pocket, and I didn't have scholarships. And that was my fault. And so any young person that may be listening or may hear this, apply for scholarships. People told me to do it. I did not do it, and it had a negative or an adverse effect on me. St. John's was my other choice. That was my home school. I said if I were to go to school in New York City, it would be St. John's. My aunt went there. She was the first in our family to go to college, and so it was a legacy school. Ended up going to St. John's. Was in my 3rd year, junior year, and I remember getting a call from the finance director. Finance director said, "Come down to the office." I come down to the office. He says, "Look, if you're going to stay, you're gonna need $16,000. I'm like, $16,000. Where am I gonna get that from? So I go to the bank and I take out a personal loan for $8,000. I'm sorry. Let me go back. It wasn't 16 initially. He told me $8,000. I'm sorry. So I go to the bank. I get the loan. I come back. I said, "Here's the money." He's like, "Oh, this is great. Where's the rest?" I'm like, "What you mean, where's the rest?"
Right.
He goes, "You need $8,000 for this semester, and you need $8,000 for next semester, totaling $16,000." I said, "Sir, I do not have $16,000."
Why you didn't tell me that beforehand? I probably would have took the loan
That
out for
part.
$16,000.
And so he says to me, he said, "Well, unfortunately, in so many words, this was the end of my journey at the institution." And he told me, he said, "Make sure you give us our laptop back, or else you'll get charged the extra $1,000 for the MacBook that we gave you." And again, I love St. John's, and it's just, this was my experience. I'm telling my truth in that regard. And so that was the end of my journey there. But it did not stop my pathway to education because I feel that for anyone, education does not stop in the classroom. Education continues on in everyday life through experiences, through mentorship. And so for me, what I did was I got involved more in my community, and I was appointed to the Jamaica Now initiative. And that committee was put together by the borough president at the time, Linda Katz, and it was designed to bring voices from around the community together to lend our voices to the revitalization of Jamaica, to which I met Adrienne Adams. Adrienne Adams was the co-chair of the committee, and I served in the executive committee with her. And so we didn't have much interaction per se. We didn't have much to talk about, right? But that's where we met.
Yeah.
No one would have told me, no one would have thought that just a few years later, she would run for city council, and I would get a phone call from her then chief of staff saying, "Hey Ty, do you want to work for the incoming council member Adrian Adams?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely, absolutely. This is what
I
I
mean, but
do."
that's a good also plug around to more young people, or just even if you're currently in your careers or whatever, that people are watching you.
Yes.
People are watching you. You don't have to have full-fledged conversations 100% or always be around them.
Yeah.
I tell a lot of staff that are under me, I say to them, like, don't think I don't know who you are. I said, I either know you for good reasons or I know you for bad reasons. That's just how it is. But do I have to sit and talk to you every day? No, I know what I need to know. So that's a good plug there to say people are watching.
Yeah.
And then when it's your time, they will make the call. They will find you. They
That's
will
right.
make the call. They will come get you, and they will make the offer.
That's right.
Of your dreams.
You just got to be ready.
Got to be ready. All right. So you got the call. Was you on time?
Yeah. So
so
I got the call, and I remember him saying to me, he was like, "Okay, so what role would you like to apply for?" I'm like, "Well, what do you have available?" He said, "Budget director." I said, I can't do that. I can't do that." He said, "All right, legislative director." I said, "That sounds good, but I can't do that either." He said, "Communications director." Yeah, I can't do that. He's like, "All right, look, we have scheduling and events." I said, "I think I can do that. I can make that happen." Hardest job in the world. Oh my gosh.
And you thought you were taking it easy.
I thought I was
you
taking
were like, ooh,
it
that
easy.
sounds like a party promoter or something. That's what you thought it was?
I'm like, okay, I can do scheduling and events.
I could help somebody calendar.
No,
you cannot.
I could
not. For city council.
That schedule, I was the scheduler for about a year and a half. To which, after that year and a half, I went to Adrian Adams herself and the chief of staff separately. It's like going to your mother and your father and having two different conversations. I said, "Look, listen, I think it's time for me to grow. You gotta. I said, I think it's time for me to grow. I think we need representation in the community more." They said, "Okay, let's think about it." They came back to me. They said, "All right, we're gonna make you the community outreach person. We're gonna take scheduling from you." I was so happy, so happy. For anybody that's a scheduler or does scheduling, more kudos to you, because it is the hardest job in the world. And so I started with Adrian Adams as scheduling and event coordinator, went to director of community outreach. When she became speaker, which was in 2022, she took office as speaker. We had some staff had retired, and so I had picked up budget. Every now and again, I would do some things on social media, so it's a little bit of communications piece. And I was kind of doing a little bit of everything. And eventually, that turned into me becoming the deputy chief of staff for the speaker's district office, and then eventually the chief of staff for her district. And that maturing from 2017, 23 years old as a scheduler, to 2025, 31 years old as the chief of staff, to me has blown my mind. It showed me, one, that anything is possible.
Yeah.
That's one. And two, I'm a person of faith that God keeps his word.
Yeah.
And so, to your initial question about me being here in this role, in this spot, from 5th grade till now, I believe has been the story being told or being written. And so now we're just living out the fulfillment thereof.
So how was it working with her?
Amazing. She said, "You didn't answer my question. You told me a whole lot of stuff, but what I asked."
I mean, it was good. I liked it. I was hooked in. But
you can go preach another time. Right now, you're gonna answer this question.
No, because I'm also looking at it from a perspective of, I too am in spaces that sometimes they don't occupy people who look like me. That I also occupy spaces where there are a lot of females in nonprofit as it relates to in the trenches at the sites. Yeah. However, there aren't that many executives or those that are close to making decisions. Absolutely. And so sometimes, I remember a part in my career where, people had to not like me, and they probably
Yeah.
still don't. I'm not really sure, or care, right? So they didn't like me, but it was like certain things I had to do as a Black woman
Yeah.
trying to matriculate in my career.
Absolutely.
So I can only imagine the fact that Adrienne Adams was able to knock down so many barriers in her time in New York City, the strongest city, if not only in this country but in this world,
Yeah.
that she and stand firmly and look good while she's doing it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how was it? Because sometimes we look good outside. It'd be our staff on the back end. They'd be like, don't get her started. So,
Adrian Adams is the personification of class, poise, and dignity. Um, Watching or serving under her has given me a front row seat to her journey, particularly in politics. And being able to see some of the rooms that she had gone into and being a fly on the wall, being able to be part of or sit in rooms where there were certain conversations happening, it showed me two things. One, this system to which we operate in was not designed necessarily for Black people,
mm-hmm.
but on top of that, it wasn't designed for
For
women.
women, yeah.
And so to be a Black woman in these spaces, having to defy the odds, having to show face or stay face, whatever the term is called, keep face, in the midst of it, showed me what strength is
Mm-hmm.
and what it is to succeed amongst those who are either secretly or overtly calling for your downfall.
Yeah.
And she has done well.
Yeah.
She has done well. I will say also, because she did run for mayor in this past year, and that was amazing to watch as well.
Wasn't she the only female candidate there too?
So she was the only Black woman. There
Oh.
was another a woman of color who also ran, who ended up dropping out actually and supporting Cuomo, which left Adrienne Adams to be the only
okay.
right.
Yeah.
And she stood on that stage.
I mean, didn't she?
And
She's like, I'm gonna be in here with all of
yeah,
y'all while y'all yell at each other, and I'm
yep,
gonna just tell y'all how I can make New York City great. That's what I'm
absolutely,
telling y'all.
yeah.
Like, I don't know what y'all in here talking about.
And she had the track record, to prove it.
She did.
Leading the council during tumultuous times where we had the other side of City Hall that was going through a whole lot.
Yeah.
It really called on the Speaker of the Council and the council itself to really have to govern in ways that were unconventional, having to, step in where the administration dropped the ball, having to push back on budget cuts, whether it was of our cultural institutions, our schools, and pushing back and winning.
Yeah.
And then even receiving more than what was initially cut.
Yeah.
This, I think, showed not just the leadership, but also the strategy of Adrienne Adams and the council and her leadership team. And so I am forever grateful to have served in her administration and to carry on her legacy,
Yeah, it's a strong mantle to carry, and we HSNY, we appreciate her as well. In the last legislative season, we was able to engage the office, and she supported us in our facilities that are in the district. Speaking of which, we have HSNY holds 4 or 5. I think I have 4 uh hotels currently in the district that is currently being occupied as emergency shelter. I'm pretty sure you're knowledgeable about the fact that New York City has teetered with the concept of letting go of hotels at one point. However, as soon as they say they're going to let go of it, capacity for some reason builds back up. It's almost like when your money's funny around Christmas. That's kind of how it kind of feels with the hotels. So we HSNY, we expanded back into Queens in 2022. I want to say we were responding directly to the humanitarian crisis, which caused us to open these shelters very rapidly in 90 days. I mean, it's open 5 sites in 90 days.
Wow.
I was not sleeping very much at that time.
That
Um,
is to be a
Thank you. Shout out. Okay. Um, and they're also, but 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 when we think about the hotels, talk to me a little bit about Queens as a whole has a lot of hotels that have been converted overall into shelters. Um, Talk to me about, how that's having an impact on quality of life,
sure.
how that do we ever see a turnaround for these? Like if capacity was to go down, can business reboom? Like what kind of things do you see for the hotels that are in Queens and in your district?
Sure. So I think it boils down to the word equity. It is no secret or surprise that we have a housing crisis, that homelessness still needs to be solved or resolved, and so I believe for us our main issue is equity. We have seen, you mentioned Queens, but I'm going to talk particularly about Southeast Queens, the area that I represent. We've seen a number of hotels turn shelters, particularly in our area. I can talk about my district alone. I believe that all of the sites that you all have in Queens are in my district, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and HSNY is not the only group, and so we applaud the work that you do. I think on the city side of it or the administration side of it, what needs to be done is a deeper dive or look into how we do placement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Folks in Southeast Queens, we have bore the brunt of a lot of things over the years. And I feel like for our residents, it's not the fact that we don't want to house folks that need housing. No, it's not that. It's not the fact that, there is a dislike, to those in need. It's not that. Because in fact, the most, in my opinion, volunteerism and service comes from our residents. Uh, Here's what I believe has to happen. We have to really push back against NIMBY, which is, for those listening, not in my backyard, which is the phrase oftentimes used for affordable housing or against affordable housing, but also for temporary housing. And so I believe that every district should have its fair share. We are one New York City, no matter what borough you're from, no matter what district you're from. I think for us here in Southeast Queens, we haven't received our fair share. We received more than our fair share. And that is what weighs heavily on our quality of life. Because now, when you have an increased population, you have to think about services. You have to think about response times. You have to think about schools. You have to think about almost every area of society. You have to consider when you have an increased population in one zone. Um, I think during the crisis of 2022, the asylum, when folks were coming in seeking asylum, yes, we had to do something. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That is what humanity calls for. We
Yeah.
have to do something. I just think that we could have done better in terms of how, again, we handled placement. Now, that's not to take away, because I know a lot of good folks that were, working, particularly on the administration side, during that time, and I believe they tried the best that they did the best that they could. But I think moving forward, we now have to, as leaders, and as the new administration, have a real conversation, so that one group of people or one area or one district or one zone doesn't feel like they are bearing the weight of the rest of the city.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Um, you've been in office now a little over 2 months, and I know a lot of your focus has been around just the overall quality of life in the
Yeah.
community. Housing Solutions of New York. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is not just running numbers. I know we talked about data,
Yeah.
but the way the system is designed, it's like you come in, I just have to place you. You come in, I just
Yeah.
have to place you. But Housing Solutions, we work on other comprehensive services, such as our food and nutrition program, our community pantries, our job readiness program, our financial literacy programs, budgeting programs. Like we try to make sure youth programs, mental health programs, because we want to make sure when you get up out of here, you never come back to another shelter, let alone ours. And that all has an impact on quality of life,
Yeah.
right? We don't just look at people as, oh, you're just unhoused, you need housing. We're looking at how can you become a better asset to community when you go and become a paying tenant.
For sure.
So now in your perspective, in your district, and again, something that you've been pushing is, why do you think it's so important for quality of life in your community, and what has it been looking like so far?
Yeah, I think that to the point that you made, particularly around services that cause folks to become well-rounded, I think that is a necessity. I think that our city, I think it was Joe Biden that said it, President Biden said, "I'll tell you your priorities if you show me your budget." And we're coming up on our first budget in the council, which if all things go right, would be passed in June. And I think that one of the things that we're going to have to take into consideration as the council, dealing with the administration, is ensuring that our budget shows our priorities. And that is ensuring that we are funding organizations, non-for-profits that do this work, that, whether it is the job training, whether it is healthy living, whether it is cultural services, all these are necessities. They're necessary, I think, for the livelihood of any individual, but not just the individual, but the collective, aka the community.
Yeah.
And so for me, my priority is ensuring that we are providing funding to organizations like HSNY, but also groups that do similar work or work in tandem with groups like HSNY.
Great. And then we're going to try to land this plane, but clearly you're coming back. I say that to only my good interviews, but
Oh, I
I
have
say that all the
fun.
time. We're going to have more fun. But before, how do you think that, nonprofits, because you have a nonprofit experience, now you have a city council experience, well, government experience. How do you think we can all start working together? Do you think there is a disconnect, and how can we bridge that disconnect between nonprofits and elected officials?
I think conversations are necessary. I think the only way to find or come up with solutions that work for all is to have all at the table. One of the things that I've seen in my years of non-for-profit, I worked for a smaller non-for-profit that had about 100, maybe 100 to 300 employees. And there were times where we were stressed out because, we weren't sure if we were going to get paid. And so the reimbursement process for a lot of non-for-profits is a major thing when it comes to the city of New York. It holds up everything. And when it comes to people's paychecks, people don't play about their money. They don't play about their coins.
No.
And so we as a city, and I know that we've been looking into it, and I'm hoping that, we have a solution soon. So that's one end. On the flip side of that, I think that when it comes to services provided, depending on, the focus of the non-for-profit, I think that the government, city government, could do better at ensuring that those non-for-profit leaders and executives have a seat at the table to talk about, hey, these are our clear needs. Let us problem solve with you. Okay, I'm saying that for a reason. Let us problem solve with you. Oftentimes it has been, here are our needs. The elected official goes, all right, I'm going to solve it. No. Let's solve it together.
Yeah.
Because the in my opinion, the best way to help anyone is to say, all right, you have a problem. I may have a solution for you, but let's go arm in arm in finding that solution so that I don't go come up with a solution that actually hurts you and not help you. And so I think as between between the city of New York and our non-for-profits, that relationship, I think, can be stronger, should be stronger. And we've seen good examples of that, I think, in the past with certain groups. But let's now expand that to all of our organizations across the city, whether it's a small organization, large organization, organization that deals with education, organization that deals with housing, whatever, whomever. Let's make sure that we are bringing everyone to the table to find these solutions.
Well, I want to thank you, Councilmember Ty Hankerson, for sharing your journey, your insight, and your commitment, not just to the district, but also to partners like HSNY and other nonprofits within the community. Before we go, I do want you to give any last thoughts, anything that comes to mind for encouragement for any Black boys or men that's currently listening to this episode, and maybe they want to get into politics or any type of journey.
Yeah, I'd say this. Anything is possible. Uh, I kind of live by these three words: dream, grit, belief. One, you have to have a clear vision as to what it is you want to do and what it is you want to obtain. After you have that clear dream, that vision, you have to couple it with grit. What is grit? Grit is that driving force inside of you, that thing that says, I have to wake up and be successful. I have to take care of my family. I have to ensure that, we get this contract. It is that force that says, I refuse to do anything but fail. So you couple that with grit, but then you have to believe. You have to apply faith. And as a person of faith, I believe that you should have faith in God, but also faith in yourself that you can. And then when you have those three together, you are unstoppable, despite what society says, despite what naysayers say. You will become unstoppable. And with those things, I believe that not only will our communities be better, but the world will be better because one person at a time, one step away, we change our individual worlds, which would ultimately affect the world at large.
Thank all of y'all for listening today. If this conversation resonated with you, please consider supporting organizations like Housing Solutions of New York every day so we can keep families housed. If you're in the district, please make sure that council member hears from you. He wants to hear all good things, all bad things. He wants to hear everything. So I hope we can continue to work together. Council member, you have a partnership with HSNY, and we look forward to growth and everything like that. I hope everybody's having a great day. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, do all that wonderful stuff. And until next time, remember that we are all just one step away.